Well, welcome to Principles with Cory and Logan. We've got another awesome guest today. I'm excited about it. It's somebody that really gotten to know over the last, I guess, 2 or 3 months. And one of the things that really stands out to me is his heart for people and his care for other people and leading people. And you can just, when you hear him and you get to meet him, you can feel that, you can sense that. And I've enjoyed getting to know him. And I feel like I can call him a friend now. And Nicholas Lewis is our guest today. He is a co-founder and co-owner of General Tech based out of Tupelo, Mississippi. He has also served our country as a communication specialist with the Joint Force Headquarter Unit out of Jackson, Mississippi. So Nicholas, welcome to Principles today, man.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Well, we're glad to have you. Hey, you know what? That's real life, Nicholas. You know, it's all good, man. It is all
good.
Well, hey, kicking it off, our title is called Principles and some of the core values that we strive to live out. And I want to ask you, what are some of your principles and your core values that you try to live out in your daily life?
So I'd say my biggest thing of what I try to do every day is honor God, right? I mean, that really is something I try to always do, is to keep God on the forefront of my mind, to see if, okay, is what I'm doing, is how I'm feeling, is that actually bringing honor and glory to God? But of course, I'm a man, so I mess up a lot. But but other than that, I mean, really and truthfully, my family is my biggest ministry. So I just honestly try to, everything I do is for my family and for God. And but I mean, integrity, the Army values. I was, not only have I been in the Army for going on, let's see, it's 2019, so yeah, 12 years now, going on, or 10 years, going on 11 years, yeah. But my dad was also in the Army, so I come from a military family. So the Army values, loyalty, duty, respect, honor, selfless service, personal courage, integrity. I really, those kind of been ingrained in me since I was a wee lad. So
that was put in you at an early age. That's actually one of Logan's top priority is integrity. Mm-hmm. And, we talk about some of the core values. For some reason, that one doesn't even make my top list, but it's filtered through other core values. And I think that's important too. So, hey, Nicholas, so you've recently jumped out into being an entrepreneur. It was kind of more of a side gig for a little bit. But give us a little bit of background. Tell us your journey from how you got from where you are to where you are now. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Well, when I first told my parents that I was thinking about starting my own business, my dad said that it kind of made sense. He told me that I've always been a hustler. So, and he reminded me of, like, when we lived in Petal, Mississippi. My dad used to be stationed at Camp Shelby, and so we lived in Petal, and I used to go and ask the little old ladies on the street if I could rake up their leaves. And then whenever I was in high school, I made a little lawn mowing business, and me and my brothers, we had a Red Ryder wagon, and that's what we carried our gas in and our weed eater, and we just, I mean, we had about 10 yards every summer. So, wow. that was pretty good for a 15, 16-year-old and two brothers.
With a little red wagon.
But I joined the Army, and when I was 17, and I became a communication specialist, and that's where after doing that for 10 years, and then being deployed, I guess when I was deployed, something just clicked in me, and I was like, why am I working so hard for somebody else? And then sometimes it was like my ideas just got tossed to the wayside. Not that, ultimately, I mean, it's not really that big of a deal, but to me, it was, I was like, I've got good ideas, you know, I can implement these ideas. I think they're, as humble as I could say that, like, I was like, I got good ideas and I can make things happen. So, when I got home from my deployment in April of 2019, I reached out to one of my good buddies that really, really helped me out on the home front while I was gone. That's really, really how our friendship just grew to the next level, because I was 7,000 miles away, and every time my wife needed me or needed him to come, like, he came over a couple times to kill cockroaches, and so, or kill spiders, and take care of my yard. So that's how my relationship with Austin really, really blossomed into a partnership. And so I asked him, I said, hey, I've got an idea. And he was like, I barely got the sentence out, and he was like, let's do it. So here we are, a little over a year later. I'm full time, and we're figuring it out.
He must like ideas as much as I do if he jumped on before you even finished your sentence. So.
Oh yeah. Sometimes we have to. Sometimes we'll end up spending 2-3 hours on an idea before we're like, wait a second, we missed like a very critical step one.
That's good. Yeah. One thing that stood out to me, you're talking about when you were younger, you used to rake the yards and those kind of things. We've got 3 kids. Our oldest son, he's a lot like that. He's a little entrepreneur too, right? And he'll look around the neighbors and say, hey, can I go sell them some lemonade? And I was like, these people are probably getting upset that you're always wanting to come sell them something. He'll load up his little wagon, and he doesn't have a lemonade stand. He'll make lemonade and put it in a wagon and go door to door and ask them to buy some lemonade. So
there you go. I'm telling you, that wagon, the invention of a wagon, like, that's got to be like the key to entrepreneurship as a child, is that wagon. Like, I mean, it got me through those summers, carrying. I'm not lugging a 5-gallon drug of gas all over a neighborhood. I put that thing in a wagon and we went. So
that's good.
It was fun.
So how long have you guys been open? It's been pretty recent. Maybe a year, maybe?
Yeah, we formed on July 23rd of last year, 2019.
So what are some of the things you've learned in that short period of time of hey, now my ideas, I can actually implement my ideas, right? Like, so what are some of the things you've learned in that short time frame?
Would be to define the scope. Defining, if and you say this a lot, is getting the vision, defining the scope. If you don't have an idea of what you want to do, and it's okay to have an idea, get the broad picture of, yes, I want to have an IT company, right? Well, there's a lot in IT. So you've got networking, you've got servers, you've got databases, programming, you've got the actual satellite communications, all kinds of things. And so if you don't define your scope, and of course it's like that in all other fields, but if you don't define your scope, you'll end up like we were with the first couple of months, thinking that we had a great plan, but we were like, our target market is anybody with a pulse that has a computer. And we weren't doing we weren't doing a whole lot. We don't have a lot of traction. But once we started, kind of defining what we wanted more to do, what services we truly love to provide, and that's when we started getting some traction. And so we've kind of applied that concept now to all the other facets, I guess, of our our business is like, well, if we've got a new project or a new company that we're going to onboard, what is our scope? What is their scope, and how they need IT to make it most efficient for them? And then how do we facilitate that need? So, because IT is a service, like you can live without it, but it's not going to be easy. And then it's going to be even harder if you have IT, but it's not managed efficiently. So, defining the scope was basically the biggest lesson that we've learned so far.
Logan, you're really big on that. Businesses finding their little niche, right? And, I think as an entrepreneur, when you take that leap, it is, hey, you got a pulse. I got something for you, right? But kind of my question here is almost to Logan, why do you think that is so important for businesses to niche down, right? And then niche down a little bit further.
Well, I think it's because personally, I believe in branding more than marketing and kind of the long-term horizon. So I think if you can kind of find those 2 or 3 things that you're the absolute best at and really just be a specialist, you can name your price a little bit more, and you can afford to deliver kind of a more high touch service. And I just feel like you end up having happier clients over the long term and having a little bit more sustainable business versus kind of chasing everything. But I do think kind of, I see a lot of parallels with Nicholas about how our landscaping business started, where I think as businesses start to grow, they have to find what they're good at, number one. And number two, in the beginning, you've just got to make ends meet. So it's really about kind of as you mature, finding those things and really building a brand, especially like Nicholas said, one of his core values is integrity. So I think he probably prides himself a lot on having happy customers. And it's just a lot easier to do when you have a little bit more focus. Cory, you talk a lot about when it's hot outside, yes, it feels hot, but if you take that magnifying glass, you can start a fire. So it's about the power of focus and becoming really good at something.
So, I've experienced that same thing, right? It's almost like playing in the weeds for a little bit until you finally find the path that you, want to be on, that you really like. And kind of as you niche down, you can serve your customers better, like what you're talking about, but I think you enjoy it more too, because that's kind of the area you like. So Nicholas, what areas that seem to kind of been for you guys, or where do you enjoy working at?
Yeah, so it's actually kind of funny because my idea was, I was like, once we started this thing and I realized that how big of a need there was for small to medium-sized businesses that don't really have an IT department, can't staff it, whatever the case may be, can't staff it, don't want to staff it, whatever that case may be. But I didn't realize how big of a need it was. And so I was like, you know what, Austin and I were talking, and we were like, we could do their networking. It's not going to be super advanced. So, and even if it is, we could hire a consultant or whatever. And so we're like, well, yeah, we could maybe run a server if they needed to, and definitely the PC management, we got that. And so we were just saying, like, yeah, like talking about all these lists that there was. And Austin, I think he probably knew they existed, but I didn't even know that there was already a term for that. And it's called multi-service provider for IT. And so that's really what we wanted to do. And I didn't even really know it existed. So it was kind of funny once I realized that there was a whole, world around MSPs, and like software companies build software specifically for us to facilitate those needs, so that's kind of where we go, because you know, like Logan said, you know, I love having I love making my clients and customers happy, and especially because in my world, um, in at least in the army setting, it was always, everybody forgot about the six shop, or that's they break them down into sections, and you know, so S1 and your is like your admin type stuff, like your HR stuff, but S6 is communications, and so everybody would always forget that the six shop existed until things broke, and then we were the worst section in the entire unit, and yeah, so it's you know, people tend to forget that IT exists until they're mad that it's not working. And so what I thoroughly love, and I'm like, I love it, even if it's something small, is going in when somebody's mad at their computer, and not only do I fix it, but I help them learn how to prevent something from happening in the future, or, you know, I explain why, and then they get it, and, you know, so I turn the situation from anger to positive. That's one of my favorite things to do. And it happens a lot in small to medium-sized businesses, especially ones that are, you know, self-made, because they already, you know, like y'all know, when you start a business, you're like, hey, I'm over here by myself, just trying to figure it out. And then I can facilitate the IT need and turn negative connotations to equipment to a positive feelings and reactions and environment.
Yeah, I want to touch on something you just said right there. You know, and we talk about in when we do leadership or business growth, all those kind of things, we talk about finding ways to exceed expectations, right? And most people want to meet expectations, but if you're going to serve people well, you've got to exceed expectations. Yeah. One of the things you just said right there is you want to come in, you love coming in, not only fixing the problem, but teaching them how they can prevent it in the future. And to me, that's you know, exceeding expectations, because all of my experience with IT professionals up until this point has been they just come in and fix it and leave it at that. And now I'm kind of dependent upon you, but you coming in and showing me how to do it, that's exceeding my expectations. And now I see you as an expert, right? It's not somebody that I just have to have because I have to have it, right? But now I see you as the expert, but also somebody that I can probably rely and trust upon, not just depend upon, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, I really, me and Austin both, like, or Austin and I, we don't want, one of the things that, you know, we kind of coined, actually, well, it's probably not coined, but for us, we are like, this is what we want. Like, we don't want clients, we want partners. You know, and that's how we see it, because, you know, if you have your own IT department, then you're probably not going to need us a whole lot, you know? So if you were to hire us to do it, you know, we're not just, you know, somebody you call, like, you know, we're your partner now. Like, we are here for your journey. You know, one of the things we kind of like to say is we come where you are when you are, because everybody's IT stages and journeys and how they use it is completely different. There is definitely not a one size fits all for the world of computers.
Yeah. You know, I want to kind of shift gears just a little bit. You know, one of the things I struggled with as an entrepreneur is that balance. You know, balance. You got business, you got small kids, you got family, you got your faith, you got health and fitness, all these other kind of areas of life. How do you balance that?
Well, I'm still really much figuring that out a lot of the times, but honestly, I think that I've got it. You know, I think that the best way for me is the best like thing is sticking to my calendar, because I can put things on the calendar and I can write it down, but if I don't honor those times with myself, then it's negating it. You know, it's making the calendar useless. So that's that's been the biggest challenge for me on that, is going, okay, well, once it's on the calendar, it's on the calendar. Obviously, my stuff with my clients, I didn't have a problem meeting those, because, if I say I'm going to be there, or if I say I'm going to do something, then I'm going to do it. But the times where I'm like, well, I've got to, and this may be a little, some people may not like doing this, but, I block off time to, I actually block off a lunchtime for myself now. And then sometimes I'll even add an extra 30 minutes or so where, okay, this is kids' time. And so I put it on the calendar, and every day I print off, the day before, I print off the next day's Outlook calendar. And so that way I can see what I've actually got on my time blocks for the next day.
Good stuff. And Logan and I have talked in other episodes, podcast episodes, and the importance of that. And any of you guys haven't listened to that, you can kind of go back. But Logan, you do some stuff too, because you're operating at a high level, and you have to kind of prioritize that time. What are some tips that you got for anyone listening that may be struggling with that as well? And, I think it's always a process as well, like Nicholas is saying, but maybe what are some tips you got?
Go watch TV.
I'm very similar. I use a paper calendar, and I use Google Calendar to kind of throw things in as placeholders, and then I review mine over the weekend and kind of finalize my schedule for the upcoming week, and then get a tentative schedule for the following week. So I'm kind of always floating between 7 and 14 days and nailing down that next 7 and getting that preliminary out for the next 7 after that. But one thing that it kind of all hinges on is exactly what Nicholas said was, and I think it kind of applies across all of life, is keeping those promises that you make to yourself. I think that's what really builds self-confidence and character. Because if you can't trust yourself to keep your word to yourself, then you're kind of relying on external accountability, and you start to lose confidence. I think you see it, or at least I see it in my own life, the biggest in the fitness world, or in my own health and fitness. If I tell myself that I'm going to get up and go to the gym before work, or I'm going to get up and go on a run, and I don't do it, man, it sets a really bad tone for the day, because I'm kind of disappointed in myself, versus had I just not told myself I was going to do it and then not done it, I would have been fine. But mentally, keeping your word to yourself builds a lot of self-confidence and kind of helps you get momentum. So I think it's something not to gloss over that Nicholas talked about. That's really, really important.
One of the things that's really helped me, and because I've actually only been full-time with my business now for a month. Actually today, that's funny, today is a month. So, and it was roughly about a week after I went full-time, I was in basically full freak out mode. Like, what did I just do? I just quit my job, and but this guy that I've really gotten to know pretty well recently, and he said that one of the things he tells himself every day is to go to war with yourself, and that right there has been a really powerful tool, I guess, to say, like, whenever there are those times when I'm like, okay, well, I've made this commitment to get up and go work out, and well, naturally I don't want to, because it's 4 a.m. So
yeah, one of the things I found about myself is upholding those commitments to yourself and going to war with yourself, as you said, man, that's huge, to like what Logan was talking about, creating that self-discipline and, kind of creating wins. I can remember there are times, I say I'm going to go for a 3-mile run, right? And you get to about 2.5 sometimes. That's pretty good, But I also know that pretty good, that becomes a habit. Pretty good becomes a habit, and quitting becomes a habit as well. So you have to fight that battle and that war within. I mean, it's constant, right? I don't think you ever get to the point where you're not battling that, but I think the battles become easier as you've developed the disciplines and you've created wins along the way. But if you haven't created the wins along the way, man, it's difficult, right? Because
and even if you do create those wins, you have to stay, you have to stay on top of yourself, like, because that pretty good trap is exactly what happened to me over this past year. When I got home from my deployment, I mean, I was in excellent shape. I mean, of course, everyone should be. I mean, you just spent a year in the desert, and all you have time to do is eat, sleep, go to work, and work out. So I mean, of course I was in excellent shape, but my workouts over 9, 10, 12 months, like it was pretty good one day, and then the next week it was pretty good, but now I'm 2 pretty goods away from good. And then by the time it went 9 months, I was like, well, I stretched. So
yeah, I did a little bit of stretching.
Yeah.
That's
but
good. Yeah. So there's a book out called 4 by Jeff Henderson. I really like it. It's kind of talking about, most people know what we're against, especially in the church world, right? People know what we're against, but what if we were known for the things that we are for? And just curious, what do you want General Tech to be known for?
I really think that it goes back to that partnership. Obviously we're an IT company that focuses on that multi-service provider concept that we were talking about earlier, where we can get down in the weeds of it and say, well, I do prefer server management over security, but I really love security. But at the end of the day, that stuff is what'll put food on the table. But we want to really build relationships and career lifelong partnerships, and that way, if you use us, that's great. We can fix your problems and solve your problems. But we want people to ultimately know that when they call us, we're not just, like you said, solving the problem and leaving, but we're solving the problems and the issues, but we're also going to find ways to prevent them from happening again. So we're not just fixing the problem and leaving, but we're going to fix the problem and solve it. or come up with a solution to circumvent that problem from happening again. So
yeah,
I think that answers. I hope that answers the
no,
question.
that's good. And no, just kind of summing up, it sounds like to be a partnership for your clients and not just offer, be someone that they come and get their stuff fixed by, but man, you want to develop lifelong relationships to where when they think about that, man, it's you, you're a partner with them in their business as they grow their business, and not just offer solutions, but come up with solutions for ongoing stuff. So I think that's awesome, man.
Yeah. How do you, where's your goal? Okay. And what is your goal and where's your goal? Okay. We've established that. Do you need IT to solve that? Okay, well, let's make it happen.
Yeah. There's probably some people out there listening, Nicholas, to us talking, and kind of like you, they've got those great ideas, but maybe somebody else isn't allowing them to implement, or the quote you said earlier, what did you say? You said, why am I working for someone else? That quote right there. And they're thinking the same thing, man. If you had some advice for them, to kind of step across that entrepreneurial line, what kind of advice would you give to them?
Honestly, it's that you don't know, the same fear of saying, I don't know if I'm going to succeed is the same thing that you've got to fight and say, well, you don't know if you're not going to succeed. So if you don't ever try, then you're definitely not going to succeed.
Yeah.
So, and that really was kind of what held me back for, I had little thoughts about going entrepreneurial, create my own business here and there over the years, but I was comfortable, and I was okay with where I was. Okay, I was just okay with it, And so, really, if you've got the ideas, at least think it through. What is it? And as a man thinketh, diving into those thoughts and asking why, and oh, well, that's interesting. Why am I having this thought? And really think it through. And if you think there's a market for it, figure it out. It's not going to hurt to try. Like I said, it took me a year to make the jump into full time, but hindsight, I went full time in August, but hindsight, I probably could have done it, March. And obviously everybody knows that's when COVID hit, so I don't know if I actually would have done it then. But I mean, the business, there's always the business is there, especially if you conduct yourself well. It doesn't. I really do think it doesn't matter what market you're in, if the principles, hence the name of the podcast. If the principles are there, then the market's there.
Yeah, I like that. That's good stuff. Well, I know we're coming up on time, and Logan has a question that he likes to end with, but I want to touch on something that you mentioned just a second ago with, kind of that, where are you putting your trust in, your faith or your fear, right? And as you mentioned, as a man thinketh, we did a teaching on that. If you have a goal, you can put your trust in your faith in accomplishing that goal, or you can put your trust in that fear, and neither one of them have evidence to prove that it's true. If you put your trust in your faith, though, and move forward, you'll eventually prove that it's possible. But if you put your trust in that faith, you'll never prove the reality of that. So, Logan, you want to wrap us up with, I love your question. I know you may have some other ones too, but
yeah, there are a few things I wanted to touch on if we can before we wrap up. Just going back to where you were talking about I think that's just incredibly important, especially in the, I guess, the social and cultural and political climates right now, where there's so much noise. Man, it's a really special skill to be able to be focused on what you're actually for. I think it's getting less and less prevalent, and that's why you're seeing people be able to become entrepreneurs and be successful, because they're able to be hyper focused on what they're for and block out that noise and really deliver. Nicholas can deliver a better product or better service than a company that might have far more resources, because he's able to hyper focus and block out that noise. So I think defining what you're for, and it goes back to Think and Grow Rich, right? What are you feeding your subconscious mind? Are you feeding it a bunch of noise and becoming distracted, or are you focusing in on what you need to be focused on? So that sounds like a good book. I hadn't heard of that one.
Oh, that's good, man. That's really good.
So, but a couple of rapid fire questions for you, Nicholas. And one, have you found any of those ideas that you weren't able to implement and maybe implemented them and found out that it wasn't a great idea? Or have all of them been as good as you thought that they were?
Let's see.
Good question.
Because now you have the benefit of seeing from, like, hey, I'm the guy that strokes the checks for whatever this is going to cost on the back end, and you've had the advantage of having to run an idea up the chain. So now kind of seeing it from both sides. Were all of them home runs, or were there some where you didn't have the right perspective and that idea wasn't what you thought it was?
So I think as far as, since I've been on my own, I haven't really had a lot of ideas that were necessarily, you know, total failures. Just because I don't, I don't think terrified is the right word, but you know, like we said, integrity. You know, and I want to make sure that I always deliver a good product, and the product, of course, is my services and the solutions that I provide. But so I really vet those. I really try to vet those well before I say, hey, this is the solution. But I mean, before I went on my own, absolutely, because I'd have an idea and I'd be like, let's do it. And so there was one time where I was like, yes, I can totally revamp this knowledge base of this knowledge base of how to do things, you know, what software is called what, and I was like, yeah, I can revamp it. And then I started looking at it and I was like, wow, there are over like 300 to 400 different softwares included in this thing. And so I was just kind of staring at it like, what did I sign myself up for? And it, but you know, very much trial and error. And luckily I had a test server to do it all on. So yeah.
There you go. I've definitely had some of those on the hotel management side of things where I thought, man, this is a great idea. And it got shot down. And then maybe a couple of years later, my position and responsibilities were different and had some exposure to some new information. I was like, wow, that would have been a train wreck if we implemented my idea. So it's always interesting kind of as we grow and learn.
Yeah. And a lot of that definitely happened in the military because, especially as a lower enlisted, you know, you see this much of the picture. And I've had people tell me that sometimes that's probably why I'm not that great of an enlisted soldier, because I'm not okay with seeing this much of the whole picture. I want the whole picture so I can understand why I'm doing this, you know? And, so yeah, I've had a lot of that hindsight in the military, and I'm glad that I had people that told me no. You know,
they put the bumpers up on us every now and then, keep us safe. Yeah, I think that's kind of, if you look at the reverse, that's why it's so important from a leadership standpoint to make sure that your team all the way up and down the chain understands why they're doing what they're doing. There's some stuff that's classified or privileged or need to know basis or whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, you can still find a way to let your team know why we're doing things so that you get the buy-in from people like yourself that are generally the people that aren't going to perform if they don't know why are probably the high performers. So it's pretty mission critical that those people are bought in. So kind of diving into the questions, if you had a billboard that everyone in the world could see, what would it say?
That everyone in the world could see. Well, you know, we've had a couple different ideas of like, you know, what's your little slogan? You know, we've had your IT handyman. We had something else that we had it for like 2 weeks and then we were like, oh, this is trash. And so I forgot what it was. Like it was that bad. But
this can be from a business or personal standpoint. Like, what message would you want to get out? Whether it's it can be business, it can be personal, it could, you know, be whatever. But what message would you want?
Yeah, I mean, I'd still say it was the same thing, that we've kind of changed it, built to serve. And I really do think that that's our focus and drive for the business. And that's our focus and drive for my life, because we are, you know, that's what God made us to be. That's what, I mean, our whole purpose is to, you know, to serve and love each other, to serve and glorify God and his kingdom. And so, built to serve is, you know, Nicholas Lewis, you know, that's who I am, I guess. I love helping people. love making people happy if I can. Yeah.
Awesome.
I could see that as like a big political billboard. Nicholas Lewis, built to serve.
Yeah. Are you up for mayor coming up anytime soon? Or?
Well, my parents have always said that I could be either a lawyer or a politician because I'll argue with the brick post. So, yeah.
Sometimes you have to be a lawyer to be a politician too. So I mean, you might could just wrap them all into one.
Yeah, two birds.
Yeah, that's right. What is one thing that you knew to be true, and then in the past 5 to 10 years learned that was actually not true?
Well, the first big thing, I guess, would be the real big thing would be God's sovereignty. Let's see, I'm 28, so 10 years ago I was 18, and I was an idiot. So that would be the big thing. But I guess from more of a personal standpoint would be probably going back to what we've already discussed, and the confidence in yourself. That's become huge to me, to change it from I don't think I can do that to I can do that. I just need to figure it out. So I'd say that those two things are pretty big. Changing, learning that God is sovereign and He does control, everything, right? And then also that you can do it, and anybody can do it. Everybody's got their mission, everybody's got their purpose, and you just got to figure it out. And for what you are, and for me, I'm good at computers and good at helping people. So I guess if that gets to glorify God, then
keep it simple. Yeah. So really, kind of, it sounds like just overcoming some limiting beliefs in the past few years.
That sounds really good. We'll go with
that. Well, it's really similar to kind of as I ask that question to people, and I've reflected on it. There have been 2 or 3 kind of big ones for me, and one of those is that I think like 5 years ago I thought that certain business leaders had it all figured out, and then like the further you get into entrepreneurship or being involved in leadership at a company, you realize that nobody has a blueprint. There's nobody out there that's like, there are a few unicorns out there that are just like incredibly gifted, and it's like, man, they're in a spot like they were born for. I've got a buddy that like it's like he sees numbers in color and everybody else sees them in black and white. He's just like a savant with numbers. But outside of the people like that are pretty few and far between, like most people don't have it all figured out. They're just, and I think coronavirus really showed that in the business world, that there were a lot of people kind of clicking along, and then it was like, boom, level playing field. Everybody is starting over. We've got to kind of, a lot of businesses just went straight to zero. Who can pivot the fastest? Who can learn the fastest? And who can take advantage of opportunity? And who's going to see this as like Cory talked about at the beginning, you can see it as a crisis or an opportunity. And there are a lot of people that are going to make a fortune right now. And there are a lot of people that are going to say, man, my business model got destroyed and I'm going to zero. And so I think that's kind of really hammered that home for me in the last 6 or 8 months, that even the people you thought that had it figured out, nobody's got it figured out. So kind of the mentality that you've taken now, okay, why not me? I'm good at computers. And I'm good at helping people.
Yeah.
So why can't it be me that's awesome at IT?
Yeah. And that's,
awesome.
you know, what you said right there, you know, seeing it as an opportunity, or, you know, the whole COVID situation. That's something that I've really tried to make sure is always on my mind whenever I'm close to failure, you know. Okay, well, yeah, I failed. Cool. Um, am I going to let that put me down in the dirt? Or am I going to learn and go, well, I'm not going to make that mistake again? And so that's another really big thing that I think goes hand in hand with the um, trusting yourself and trying.
Yep.
That's good, Nicholas. For me, the biggest takeaway that I've got from what you said, I love this thing that you said. I had to write it down. Business is always going to be there if you conduct yourself well, right? I love that, because that allows you to shift in difficult times. It allows you to thrive in the good times if you conduct yourself well, man. I love that. So, Nicholas, man, hey, if anybody wanted to find out more about your services, what all you guys do, or if they needed your services, or if they just wanted to kind of follow you on social media and connect with you, how would they do that?
So we do have a Facebook page, General Tech LLC. And then we've got a website with, that of course has our high points of our services and whatnot. That's gentechms.com. This is fun for me. We do meme Fridays, and so it's always a funny computer meme, and keep it lighthearted and, you know, kind of show us. But that's where we try to put out some tech tips, you know, things that people, you know, may not know. One of the biggest ones that I was blown away that nobody knew, but of course, you know, this is my niche, right? Was how to reopen a browser tab that you just closed out, Control-Shift-T, and that one got shared like 200 times. It was ridiculous. So yeah, but then we got tech tips, you know, we'll talk about our services, put out news, you know. I try to be extremely, you know, we try to be really responsive on our Facebook. So that's an excellent way to contact us. But, you know, I've also got my phone number and email address and contact forms on the website too. So,
Nicholas, one last thing. I always ask our kids, what's one thing they learned today, right? Because I want to learn from them. And then I tell them one thing I learned today. I learned something right there. Control-Alt-Shift-T opens.
no, just Control-Shift-T.
Okay, all right.
There you go.
You better learn it right, Cory.
Yeah. I would have told them wrong. Control-Shift-T, man. That's good stuff.
Yeah. If you close the browser, you just, you know, or the tab, Control-Shift-T, and
Control-Shift-T.
I told my dad, he was like, you know how many times I've closed a bank tab out and had to start over? And I said, well, Control-Shift-T.
That's it. That's the solution. Well, Nicholas, man, I really enjoyed our conversation today. You've added a ton of value. And guys, if you're listening, make sure to connect with Nicholas. And if you're looking for an IT department for your business, hey, you're going to get served well with Nicholas and Gentech and Austin there. So Logan and I both appreciate you coming on today. For those listening, hey, appreciate you guys taking a listen. Make sure to subscribe so you stay up to date with any of the upcoming episodes. We thank you guys, and I hope you guys have a great day, and God bless.